Hello, and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes, bringing you another Old Man Orange Presents Via VHS episode. One of them from the rarities vault that we have from back in the day that just never got put out. So come join us for another fun-filled retro movie review. Let's jump on in.
So welcome to another episode of the Via VHS Retro Movie Podcast. It's going to be a fun episode. We're not going back in time. We're going to fast forward.
Oh, yeah.
Little gimmick we have, an excuse to review new movies, but we try to stick to films from franchises of, you know, the VHS era. So if there was ever a Star Wars or, James Bond or anything like that, something that was popular in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and they come out with a new installment, which happens like every fucking week. Then we have something to talk about. So we're doing one of those.
Now, speaking of fast forward, did you ever have one of the VCRs that had the time codes on it so that when you record your movies, you could write down like literally the number, and then when you're fast forwarding through it on the taped one and you had like 3 movies on your VHS, you knew exactly where the next one started at?
Okay, we're going to have to start over because something that popped up on the screen, you went away, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, of course, that always happens.
I apologize. Yeah, I'm sorry. But at least it happened right now.
Yeah, it's better to happen now instead of 15 minutes from now.
Yeah. I heard you start to say it, and then I caught the tail end of something about VHS, and I just missed it.
I'll bring it up when we do it again. Okay,
cool. So welcome to another episode of the Via VHS Retro Movie Podcast. This could be a fun episode. We're not going back in time. No rewind review this week. We're going to fast forward. We're chugging along. Every week, there's a new movie that's released. It's from it's a reboot, a sequel, a prequel, something that's brought to us by the VHS era. It's a new installment of a VHS era franchise, and this week we have Prey, the new installment in the Predator franchise. So we're gonna fast forward, and as always, I'm joined. Whether we go rewind, review, fast forward, whatever we're doing, I'm joined by Spencer Scott Holmes. How you doing?
Hey. Speaking of fast forwarding, did you ever have one of those VCRs back in the day that had the time codes on it so that like when you tape movies off TV and you had about 3 of them on a VHS, you knew exactly where to start the next movie because you would just fast forward that exact time?
I don't think I did.
They were kind of, I don't know if they're kind of fancy or I think they just kind of stopped making you probably could always buy them for a price, but it felt like past like the early 80s, it's like they kind of started pulling that away in a sense and probably just made it for like the high end ones, I guess. But I just happened to have one that had it. And I remember because all like the VHSs would always have like 5-digit numbers written on them. So you knew exactly where to fast forward it to.
Wow, that's kind of impressive.
Yeah, it's a cool feature. It's like one of those ones that you don't think about it, but you could almost have done the thing where you had chapters on a VHS and you would just have it like on a little sleeve inside that would just give you the numbers. So it'd be like a DVD or a Laserdisc, but
VHS was way more, you could do a lot more with VCRs than people realize today.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I think I mentioned before, like I wanted to beat Star Fox one time on N64 and I found a way to record it. I can't remember how I did it, but like some workaround, and I figured out how to record me playing Star Fox.
Well, it's just like recording a movie off TV,
Yeah.
I remember because I used to do that too. I record video game stuff, but there's like back in the day where like, well, I don't know what to do with this now other than looking at myself and show my friends.
Yeah. This is proof that I beat this game, if you don't believe me.
Yeah. But that was I think, well, actually, no, I was thinking on the Atari days, you had to take a photo, like when you got your high score and you would send it in, they'd give you like the little badges and so on like that. So you could like put your like Atari, like merit badge collection across like your sash.
That's pretty cool. I want one of those. I want an Atari merit badge sash. Of course, I wouldn't get any because I'm terrible.
Yeah, you got to get certain high scores on everything. But
Damn.
Another good feature about VCR is that this is the one thing that I felt like nothing else has ever been kind of like it. I mean, I guess if you log into your account nowadays, you can do it on streaming ones. But one of the best parts about VHS is I could be watching a movie right here, and then I get like a half an hour into it, and then I literally come over to your house. We put the VHS back in. It starts off right there. Like that feature in itself. I mean, it's a tape, so I mean, it's logical why it is. But that was the thing. I remember when DVDs and Laserdiscs and Blu-rays and all that stuff. It's like, that feature right there is so nice when you want to switch between different ones. Or even if you're just in your house, you're like, I feel like moving to the bedroom. Pop it out, plug it back in, continue your movie right where you left off at.
Dude, I have movies behind me that I've gotten. I've paid. We'll talk about Prey in just a second. I have probably paid less than $100 for every VHS I own. That's why I don't like to consider myself like a serious collector, because I don't go after the rare, obscure stuff. I'm not like a catalogist, but I've picked stuff out of here. Let's just throw it in the TV and just plop it on, just see what happens. And it'll be like halfway through the movie, 3/4 of the way, 25% through a movie. And I sit there and think, okay, when's the last time this tape has been actually played?
Exactly.
And years ago, someone was watching this. Maybe they're like getting too sleepy, decided to cut it off. Maybe you got to get a snack and then never went back to it. So years ago, somebody stopped this tape at this particular spot, made a decision to stop it there, and never went back. And 10 years later, I'm restarting it. Could be from another state. They could have moved to North Carolina. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, there's like this connection thing there, and so
it is. There's a connection. It's almost like cryogenically freezing an experience.
Yeah,
and then like I'm reviving it here, like Han Solo out of the shit. Anyway, Prey.
Yes, Prey.
We're doing Predator this week, so we did Predator 1, Predator 2, and we're skipping the other ones, and we're doing Prey. We could have.
Predators is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Like Predator 3 is, it's definitely up there for me.
It's pretty solid. The Predator, I think we're both agree. We kind of talked about it for a second.
Yeah.
Off air, but it's all right.
Yeah. I want to give it the college try again, because I haven't seen it since theaters. And as I said, I just had such a it just sounded like it should have been like one of the greatest Predator movies ever. You had all the ingredients there. You had Shane Black. He was writing and directing it and all this stuff. And then it was a comedy movie first and foremost, which is really not what I was ever expecting in Predator. Like Predator's one of those ones it's a multi-genre experience of sci-fi, action, horror, all this kind of stuff. But you don't think of what's going to outweigh it? Comedy. A little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of horror, a little bit of action.
The comedy wasn't over the top in the original Predator. It was funny one line, like even when they're doing the pussy jokes and stuff like that. It's like it works within the film. And I ain't got time to bleed and stick around and all the things that are in there. It doesn't detract from the tone of the film. And the Predator didn't know what it was. Predators was okay. I need to watch I've never watched the Alien versus Predator movies.
I liked them a lot when they came out. Probably I was just more excited because that was the first Predator I got to see in theaters was Alien versus Predator. So I was ecstatic about it, but I always enjoyed that one. The second one's kind of, I don't know. That's another one I've only seen it once, so I kind of want to give it another go just to see, what the hey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is right there.
Yeah. Throw it on screen since I have it. I don't have Predator 2 on VHS though.
Yeah, I don't have that one either. Because that's one of those movies I didn't get to own it till the DVD copy came out.
It has a better cover than. Well, actually, I don't know. It has a better cover than this because that poster for Predator is one of actually my favorite posters of all time. With Schwarzenegger, and he's got the gun, and it's got the infrared background. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, that one's a sweet one there. But I guess getting to Prey. Prey is the one that sort of came out under the radar. Like this movie just felt like just a couple of months ago. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's a trailer for a new movie. And if you weren't really keen in on it, you would think this is something else. You know what I mean? It's one of those ones it doesn't really give away right off the bat that, oh yeah, it's a Predator. I mean, it makes sense, Prey, Predator. The words go together. But for the average viewer, I felt like they probably don't know what this is coming out. They probably see Prey, and even you look at the cover on Hulu, and it's one of those ones that doesn't tell you that that's a Predator movie whatsoever at all.
Yeah, I think they're trying to distance themselves from some of the other stuff, which is probably a good decision. Mm-hmm. Thus far has been the most successful thing Hulu has ever released in terms of a movie. It's getting great reviews. There's a little bit of neck beard backlash, I would say. Just a little bit. Don't you think so? Backlash
against what part?
Well, just there's some backlash against the perceived wokeness of it.
Oh, I mean, the only thing it really has is it just has kind of just a woman just going hey, I know that when they picked my numbers when I was born, they said I was going to be a healer. When I was born on Krypton and they chose what I was supposed to be in life, but I want to be a hunter. So it's got a little bit of that in there. And I'll say is you probably could do the movie the same way without her having to do any of that kind of stuff and just being like, she could just be a hunter out, but she could be like a Laura Croft. Like nobody ever questions Laura Croft. Other than the fact they go, you ever notice that this, millionaire is running around shooting exotic animals and doing, gymnastics tricks all over the place and stealing gold. But beyond that, though, it's like, I mean, it's there. It's there. I'll say it's there if you want to point it out. But it's one of those ones. If you're just watching the movie, I don't think it's not so much there like other movies where it almost feels like they gotta stop and the screen shuffles over and someone walks out and goes, "Let me tell you what's going on really quickly." Like one of those ones, totally breaking the fourth walls. Because that's my biggest thing is when they do that. As I said, this one here, it's just like all it is it. Her brother and his like kind of like sort of like in a sense douchey friends going out. Like if this was in like the 90s, they'd be all out in ATVs right now, but like since they're Native Americans, they're out there, but they're kind of like, hey, who's bringing the skirt along for a hunting trip? It's supposed to be all men. What if I want to get naked? You know what I mean? Like, oh well, we can't do that now. There's a woman here. Oh well, yeah, see, that's it.
Well, it's here's the thing with this movie. First of all, let me just get that part out of the way before I kind of give my first thought on it. The only thing I get more annoyed than woke stuff is people complaining about woke stuff. Like this movie, it's just have fun with it, enjoy it. It's the only time I got annoyed. And by the way, we're talking spoilers here, so we're gonna get into it. The only time I really got annoyed with the female thing is when she kind of sliced through that like group of like French fur trappers, like hot butter, like no problem at all. But I think I would have had a problem if that was a guy too. It really wasn't about her. Like she just just
here's these guys that are all, let's be honest, well trained. They're not. They make them out like they're a bunch of just like slack-jawed guys out there hanging out in the woods. And yeah, sometimes there's that kind of thing there. It's like, well, she had a hard time with like, a couple of these creatures in the beginning and she took out how many of those guys at once, but whatever. It was still kind of a cool action scene.
It was a great action scene. I mean, this movie was, and I want to say I love this movie. Mm-hmm. So what I'm about to say is not an insult, but it's true. This movie is an R-rated Disney movie. And I'm not saying that Disney owns it and distributes it because they own Fox and they own Hulu, and this is technically a Disney movie. I mean,
technically it's a Disney movie nowadays, but which is the weird part when you think about it.
Yeah, which I'm not saying it in that context. I mean, from a formula standpoint, it's a Disney movie. It's like it's not very different than Mulan or
I was gonna say it's literally Mulan with a predator.
Yeah, it's like they just took this like 90s character. Mom says I can't do this, and everybody in the tribe says I can't be a hunter, but I have a dream of being a hunter, and I'm really cool, and I'm great with it. The movie Brave or Mulan or any of those. And this is not an insult. I think it's just really cool you get those movies, which I like Mulan, and Brave's okay.
Oh yeah, I love Mulan, but yeah.
So it's just really cool. Like, hey, this is basically Mulan, except like it's R-rated and gory and just great action.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool.
I mean, really, my only complaint to the movie, and it's really not the movie at all, it's actually just the distribution of it. They really screwed the pooch by not making this a theater movie, though. Like, this movie was shot to be in cinemas. I don't know why they thought it could have been both, like what HBO or what Warner Brothers does, where they put it in theaters and it goes to HBO at the same time. It should have done that. Like, that's the only thing when I was watching this movie, that was all I was saying. I was like, man, I'm so bummed I can't watch this in theaters, because this movie was made to be in theaters. Because that was my thing that kind of scared me at first. When I heard straight to DVD or straight to video, I was like, yeah, mostly when that kind of happens, not saying they can't be good, but it says that there's going to be, they're a lot of times those movies are never as good as they should be. But this movie was shot like it was a AAA, like going to theaters. Like they spared no expense. Let's say that. The
only thing that was held back from, I think, being on a streaming platform as opposed to theatrical, I think it was a theatrical release. Some of the CGI bear would look better and a few things like that. The CGI bear looked pretty bad. Well, I mean,
I'll still say, like, even if it was probably a Predator movie, like that would have came out now, like that CG probably would have been what the movie had. Because when I say, like, it's high end for like a horror movie, but not necessarily like it's going to compete with, like, a really, like, a couple million or a couple $100 million movie. You know what I mean? But it still could have fit in the theater realm.
Oh yeah, I think I would have. I thought the same thing early on. Like, some of the opening shots, and just it has a real cinematic quality to it. I would have liked to seen this in theaters, but at the same time, based on really, if you can make the argument there's only been one really good Predator movie since the original. I think there's been two, but a lot of people can say that they don't like Predators or Predator 2.
I've never heard people say they don't like Predators very much. Like that one's always the one that was like kind of like that was mostly always considered like the high bar one right after Predator 1. Like,
yeah, it's definitely one of the more, the best ones, but I think it's, especially after the last Predator movie with The Predator.
Yeah.
I think this franchise was kind of in a place where I think streaming kind of helps it, because it's really hard to get people sold on a theatrical release when something didn't do as well at the box office. But somebody comes along with a really, really good idea for something, and if you're going to put it in theaters to give it a big budget, they're going to be like, nah, it's a really good idea. We like it, but we can't risk it. But with streaming, you might be able to say, okay, let's see if we can revive this franchise here.
Yeah.
And, maybe that's what they did. I mean, because this was damn good.
Well, it makes sense, because especially like one of those ones, you do skip some expenses by not going to cinemas. That's definitely true. And it is one of those ones, like if it goes to theaters, this would have been one of those kind of movies that probably would have been like, well, it made its money back, but it didn't make anything great, because it would have just attracted just the Predator fans, let's be honest, like in horror movie and action fans. I guess when you're on Hulu, and this is, I think, what they were shooting for, and by having the movie not really look like it's a Predator movie, I think they're looking to sort of capture, they were going to run into like some children who'd had no idea really what the Predator was, and this was going to be their gateway film. I think that's what they were really shooting for with this one, is this was going to capture, the children, the teenagers, and so on. Like, then there's going to be an old person turns on, and they get about half an hour into it, like, oh, what the hell is a Predators in this movie?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not good. I think that's what they're trying to do, is they're just going like, hey, most people have no idea what they're getting into. And I think that was kind of the success there. I mean, and they pushed it hard on Hulu. Like, I mean, like you turned Hulu on, and that was like, that's what came up first. It was like almost like an ad for it practically. So they were sparing no expense as far as that part goes.
But here's the thing with that, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about, recently when you hear this episode, Predator 2 episode will also be out. I think it was Predator 2 when we were talking about Batgirl.
Yeah.
And all that situation they're like, well, you're saving all this money on marketing. And I'm looking at this movie. Marketing is not traditional anymore. You're not buying, they probably did buy some TV ads.
Yeah.
And, things like that. And it was probably, but I don't watch a whole lot of regular TV until football season.
Well, I think they buy the YouTube ads too. That's the other big one.
Yeah. YouTube ads are probably the biggest thing that they bought, but you have all the social media that you can use for free, basically.
Yeah.
You're advertising it on Hulu. So people who watch it on, and then you put the trailer on YouTube and social media. People are going to share it for you. The cost of marketing has to be significantly less than it used to be.
Oh, by far, for sure.
And I think, so it is kind of a shame on that end, because if you did put this in theaters and it got word of mouth, you could have made a lot of damn money. Because what the budget was on this thing? I didn't even look.
I don't know. I could take a look real quickly here.
Yeah. What kind of?
It was, I guess it doesn't say if it's a.
Yeah, it might not.
Since it's not a theater movie, at least it just doesn't say on the Wikipedia page. So somewhere in there's probably a budget, but yeah, I don't know why it doesn't say it, but maybe that'll come up as time goes on too. But
well, on Forbes Hollywood and Entertainment, the first thing that pops up when I looked that up was why Prey likely would have struggled in theaters. And I haven't obviously read this because I just saw it, but I mean, that's kind of the thing I was thinking too, is like people were kind of down on this franchise, but there's so much potential for it. Mm-hmm. And there's so many good ideas out there that maybe they didn't want to give up. And this is a good scenario. Maybe there's some other, I mean, honestly, Alien would benefit maybe from something like this if it was done well. Yeah. Kind of revive it.
Yeah, I mean, because as I kind of said that earlier, I think what happens if it goes to theaters, let's be honest, it's just the fans that are going to show up to it.
Yeah. And
the fans never pay the bills. It sounds weird, but like there's not enough fans for any franchise to really pay the bills. You need to kind of get the regular folks to come on in, who don't, care. I mean, they like it, but they're not going to go out of their way like the fans will. Because, the fans probably, I always feel like for any franchise, for the most part, the fans only make up probably less than 10%. of like the actual money you make. The most of it's probably just mom and pop in Oklahoma showing up, paying the bills for it that way, just people walking in with their buddies that they don't know what they're really getting into, like that kind of stuff. And I feel like in cinemas, it's at that point where that's kind of how it is. But that's where I feel like if you just would do the thing where you double release it, where like it's on Hulu, and that's where you're really focused on trying to get people in, but have it still appear like it don't really advertise it hardcore for the cinemas, because the thing is the people that are into the cinema nowadays, I feel like are already in the loop. I mean, I know I'm kind of just saying that, but like it seems like every theater now pretty much has an app, pretty much has, a pass that you pay per month to go there. It seems like if you're really in the cinema, so everything that's coming up. You know what I mean? And that almost tells you what there is there. And that audience you could have just captured and let them have, their enjoyment for the people who like the cinema still,
I'll say this too about streaming. And it's one good thing is it forced this film to be smaller, which worked so much better. I mean, it just, a smaller scope, kind of scale it back to its roots. Yeah. And you have to be intelligent and creative to try to make this an entertaining film, as opposed to just like, let's have Predator kill things and blow things up. I mean, it has that, but you have to have good characters. You have to build kind of a world and have some good filmmaking.
Oh yeah, and this movie, it's got that. It's got the filmmaking. It's got great characters all the way around and so on. It's funny because I was looking at the director and I was just trying to figure out what he did. Dan Trachtenberg or whatever, and it's like he only has done one other movie, but that movie's actually a really good movie. That's that 10 Cloverfield Lane. Like I saw that, I'm like, well, that's a good enough prerequisite. It's kind of weird that that's the only thing you've done, but like especially in like, so he's like, you haven't made a movie in like 8 years. Like it's kind of a weird one there, but sounds like they've been working on this movie actually almost ever since The Predator came out in a weird way. So
yeah, I think so. I think COVID probably slowed it down a little bit too. And maybe some of the stuff, maybe it was originally intended to be a theatrical release, and then all these other things, COVID and all the other things that happened kind of slowed it down, and might be a blessing in disguise. I mean, again, I think we both would like to see this in theaters, but as somebody who doesn't get to go to the theaters as much as they used to also, I was pretty pumped that it was there. But I don't have a whole lot of complaints about this one. I was actually very, very pleased. I think I'll go ahead and say, I think that in my personal opinion, I think this is the second best Predator movie.
See, and I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, it probably is. I want to give it like one more watch just to kind of solidify that, because it's between that and Predators for me, because Predators I still liked quite a bit. And so on like that there. And I got to see that in theaters. So that's always going to make it seem like it probably give it a little bit more of a higher bar anyways. But like between those two, like this one and Predators, I think that would be kind of where it goes. But that's how good this one is. I mean, it like literally bumps up right next to Predator 1. And I think the other thing too is like I love how it has the Native American kind of cast, because that's something I always say is that you see very few movies with Native Americans in it unless they're westerns. I mean, this one still has some western elements to it. It would almost, to me, it'd be a little bit more interesting, even though it still always works like that, if it was like one of those ones where it's like it's Native Americans, but it's like 1200 AD instead. So you just eliminate all the white people from ever being in there. Because that's the one thing I always kind of wish is just that they just don't make just straight Native American movies. They have to always be some form of a western.
That's a very good point. I mean, or like even this not Native American in terms of North Native American, but even like was that in Mexico?
No, Apocalypto is like the closest one, because there's the only time you see Spaniards is at the very end, right before the credits, and it's just like, oh yeah, by the way, here comes a boat full of disease and rape.
Yeah.
Like that's how that thing.
Ow. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You don't see a whole lot of movies like that. So I kind of enjoyed that too. And again, the casting too. I mean, they're actually casting Native Americans as opposed, which is the past 5 years or so, 10 years, that they've gotten a little bit better about that. I mean, I think, we're gone are the days of like where whitewashing is going to be that prevalent. Although James Franco did just get cast as Fidel Castro, but whatever.
Okay, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah, because I thought his career was over anyway. So, but I think a lot of that whitewashing, like Exodus, Gods and Kings, Ridley Scott, like, we're gonna have this like a Egyptian movie, and we're gonna have nothing but like we have like Christian Bale in it and Aaron Paul. I think Sigourney Weaver was in it, if I'm not mistaken.
See, like Sigourney Weaver, you just give her enough of a tan, and I guess you kind of see it. I think also this sounds weird, like, because I know people like they sometimes look at that as like sort of like when there's like a white person or even just another race plays another race, like is like, oh my gosh, like that thing's terrible. But I think back in the day, acting wise, it was almost like, oh, it's a challenge. As far as my acting goes, I'm playing something else, because that's sort of like in a sense when you think about when you're acting. You're not playing just yourself, correct? You're trying to play a character and try to take on other stuff. I think it seemed like in the olden days, it just seemed kind of like an extent of, it wasn't like nobody was thinking of it as a racial thing. They're thinking like that's an extent of my acting, is that I'm able to be this guy from England, but I can play an Egyptian in this movie now.
Well, that's,
you know what I mean?
That's like the whole premise behind Robert Downey Jr.'s character in
it's the acting, it's the super acting challenge is can I make this in a sense believable? And I think that's something people forget. They look at it like it's a racist thing, but I think like as an actor standpoint, it's actually a lot different. It's just, and I feel nowadays actors are almost like one of those ones like almost nowadays you can't even have an American play a British person anymore. Be like, oh, you racist? He's an American. He can't play a British person. You're like he's putting on a fake accent. Like once again, I hate to sort of say it, but isn't that what acting is? Is you're being a fake? You're being a big phony in a sense. Like, let's be honest. I think we're going to get that point where like you can only play who you are in real life. You can't act anymore.
Yeah.
That's it. So now everybody's going to get super typecasted.
It's all going to be AI bots in the next 20 years.
Yeah, that's true. Robots are going to do it all for us.
Yeah.
They're going to write and direct and do. If you're going to realize they're doing it better.
Yeah. So director Dan Trachtenberg, lead character Naru, played by Amber I think it's Mid Thunder, which is a cool ass name.
That's a badass name. And that character right there was amazing. Like that's one of those ones where I'm like, you could just give me a full series of comic books based on this character now. You could just give me all kinds of stuff. Like that could be a video game character right there. Like that character right there I was already sold 100%.
That would be a great video game character. First of all, the rope axe was dope as fuck.
Yep. That
was cool. Everything, like the thing, she like you root for her instantly. I was really, really, really pleased with this. I think it's the best. I'll go ahead and say I think that's the best character they've done. Because there's not that much depth to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Predator. There's need to be.
Yeah, he's Arnold, and he's playing kind of the Arnold character.
He's the apex man versus their apex predator, and that's kind of that's all he needs to be. Yeah, and you don't need to. There's not a whole lot of depth there, or even the Danny Glover really in Predator 2.
Well, Danny Glover's in a sense playing it's Danny Glover to fight the predator. At the end of the day.
Yeah, this character has motivation. There's a reason that she's out there. She's got something to prove, and there's like a whole theme to it, and everything kind of ties together towards the end of the movie. Like, I kind of want to. Is this what they're gonna do? Like, is this what it's gonna be now? Is this what Predator's franchise is gonna be like? Historical. Is that? Do you think that's what they're gonna do?
Well, I always felt that's something in Predator that for the longest time that's something they could have done. And I know that they've done it before in the comics and things like that. It's not that this is like, the first time it's ever existed in a, form of media, but movie wise, I always felt that's almost more the way to go is, take it to different places and so on like that, have Predator go to like Samurai Japan or something like that, or I even thought another one's kind of like you take that Predators concept of where they're pulling people up into space and fighting them on their own planet. But it'd be kind of cool. And feels like I almost feel like it's kind of like an idea from like Fallout, the video game series, but like is have one of those ones where like they're abducting people, but they're abducting people from different time periods and putting them there instead of just everybody from like 2006. It's literally like, oh, here's a samurai guy, here's a cowboy, here's a knight, here's just yada 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 yada, go down the list. You can find all kinds of cool stuff here. Here's a barbarian, and just they're picking almost like just the tough people throughout time and kind of having these people kind of having to work together and so on. Like, I just figure it out sci-fi wise how this all comes together and why there's time travel and all that stuff. But I feel like that concept right there, I think would be really badass to watch, but there's so many things you can do.
Yeah. I think this is where they're going to go with it. There is that risk of it being formulaic. Like, okay, here's a Predator movie. It's set in a different place, but it's the same thing as the last one, but
Mhm.
it's in a different place. I mean, so you have to be careful with that. But there's a lot of so many ideas. One idea I thought of, like, wouldn't it be cool if like there was another urban one, but it was at a different time, maybe like pre-industrial revolution London, and there's a Sherlock Holmes-esque character trying to figure out what all these murders are happening.
Yeah,
and kind of base it off Jack the Ripper a little bit and kind of like tie that in.
Well, that's the other thing. What you do is you switch the genre up of Predator. Like, you know what I mean? Because that's the thing, Predator's already a mixed genre film anyways. But the idea of doing, in a sense, a hardcore mystery movie that happens to have a Predator in it is a cool idea, I think. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of thing where he's solving crimes like a Batman kind of thing. And as it's going on, there's just these murders are so weird, so bizarre, and so on like that. And you almost could you can do the thing where there's action, but you keep the action kind of like that it's quick and to the point kind of stuff. And towards the end, if you want to have a grand finale and so on like that, but it'd be cool just to have it be hardcore into that mystery section. That might be a tough sell for the average person, but
yeah, there's all kinds of things you could do with it. And I just hope that they keep making characters like Naru in all of them, because that was, to me, the best singular character that this franchise has ever had. I can't say that this is a better film than 87, but that might be just because it's so close to my heart. It might be.
Well, it's like Predator 87. It's too classic. It's too, defining. There's too much good stuff going on in there that I feel like it's hard. When you make a movie that good, it's so hard to top it. You know what I mean? But this movie is like, as far as like, it's like, point wise, this movie still practically hits that well. Like as I said, I felt like I had nothing to complain about. I love things like the survival aspect. It was kind of going on, how she's by herself for like a long time in this movie, because that's something that a lot of movies can't really do, is just have a character by themselves. To me, I always think that's like one of the coolest things, when you're just watching a character have to interact with nature and the environment. And then even that too is like, that's something you don't see anymore. And I think for the longest time was because of they just couldn't put animals in movies. Like, well, they still can't put animals in movies anymore, but is you just didn't see a lot of man versus nature stuff anymore, which used to be a little bit more common like theme in movies. And then that kind of went away for about 20 years. And once in Blue Moon, you get something that has it. But I think this one has a lot of that in there. I mean, she's fighting wolves, she's fighting a bear, she's fighting a mountain lion, all kinds of stuff throughout this thing, and then she fights a predator,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, Trachtenberg, I've only seen 10 Cloverfield Lane once, but I remember it being extremely suspenseful. And you're talking about a small scope. That film really is a small scope. I mean, it's like
bomb shelter.
Yeah, it's a bomb shelter. So he knows how to create suspense and do things like that with just, limited effort. And, not limited effort, limited, resources to work with. And so with this one, you have a lot more to do. That movie, I mean, you're literally in the great, frontier. So there's a lot to explore, but I don't know, man, this was really, really good. But what really sold it was the end battle in this.
Mm-hmm.
So many things end up coming together from other elements that happen in the movie, building up to that. But that final fight scene in the dark was so good. I love what they did with the predator blood and, how bright it was and the contrast. Everything looks so good. I fucking loved the end of this movie.
Oh, that's definitely true. I mean, when I first saw, like, when the mask kills the predator itself, and I was like, wait a second, like, when I first was like, how does that work? Like, you think there'd be a safety mechanism in there that's like, oh yeah, you can't shoot yourself.
Yeah.
I thought that was like, I know what it was going after, because it was like an auto targeting system kind of thing. But I did feel like it was a little bit, that was about the only thing I was like, a little bit weird that his mask is what kills him. I mean, it works, and it's still kind of a cool, as she set it up as a trap in a sense, Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, other than that though, that scene's badass. I like when her brother's fighting the predator and he's coming up in there and he's like literally dodging bolts and things like that, shooting a couple arrows and so on like that, dodging some more, jumps off his horse, has a big old battle with him. Like, that part's so cool.
Well, it's just the advantage of modern filmmaking. There's so much more you can do now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would kind of almost like to see the original Predator made with today's technology, just to kind of see what they could do a little bit more, like in terms of just actual hand-to-hand combat really, or just like one-on-one combat. Because that whole end thing was so good. But yeah, I don't know. I really hope that I hope this kind of revives everything, because there's so much more you could do with it. I would like to see them go theatrical next time, maybe. But if it stays in this format and stays on streaming, I can live with it, and I think it will. Honestly, I think you're going to see Alien and Die Hard kind of go this direction, because I think Hulu, all those Fox properties that Disney bought, they're going to use them. Mm-hmm. And I think that I think Hulu might start to get some attention. You can't put Prey on Disney Plus.
No.
I mean, it's just no, but you can put it on Hulu and still reap the benefits.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones there. I mean, I hate to sort of say, as somebody who loves the cinema, I got to sort of accept that the cinema is going to die any moment, in a sense. Like, they might keep some of them there for novelty purposes, but the average cinema, like, I feel like in 10 years, I would be kind of surprised if you could just go to a cinema in just about any town. In 10 years, they're going to be treated like they're theme parks, I think, and you're going to have to journey to go get to one.
There's a whole thing with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas talking about the future of cinema. And if not, this is pre-COVID.
Yeah.
If not for COVID, I disagreed with them.
Yeah.
I think that it was a little too much doom and gloom. I think there's more optimism to be found. But after COVID, what it did to the industry, I mean, AMC is basically being propped up by hipsters on Reddit. It's like, which I like that stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for that, but it's, it'd be interesting to see where it would be if not for just a few little safety mechanisms, because I mean, Top Gun kept it afloat this summer. I mean, it made $1 billion. So
yeah,
maybe there's a place for it, but I don't know if every type of movie can thrive in theaters anymore.
No, I definitely don't think so, because once again, you're holding on for the majority of the people showing up to theaters are the hardcore fans. It's the people who really like movies and really like the theater. And once again, that doesn't pay the bills. That's that kind of thing. And the thing is like, that I think the COVID thing sped it up. I felt like the movie theater might have been on the last for about 15, 20 years. That thing like instantly killed 5 to 10 years off of it, if not more, realistically. Yeah. And it's one of the ones, I'm not saying it's a doom and gloom. It's just, it is kind of it's like the inevitable. It's sort of like how I think Blu-rays or 4K Blu-rays are technically the end of physical media. I don't believe there's going to be something after that.
I kind of agree with you.
Because the thing is I know very few people that even buy Blu-rays anymore. Like, it's probably as much as I do. I mean, when I tell somebody I probably still on average buy at least 10 plus movies like a month, they look at me like, really? You still do that? I'm like, it's the main way I watch movies.
Yeah. It's the whole industry is changing a lot. And also you have the element that just TV, the TV format. Yeah. TV series are starting to catch up too. You got like some of these, Obi-Wan aside, some of the other series look really good. Like visually, that it seemed on par in a lot of ways. And this probably had like more of a TV budget. Prey did, and it looked really good. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. I kind of, it's going to hurt these mid-tier movies. Like the Northman's a great example, because we got a bigger budget than it probably realistically should have got, just based on what the situation is at hand. I'm glad it got that budget, because it looked great.
I am too, because that movie's still my favorite movie of the year. Like, it's so good.
It was good. I liked it overall.
I like it. It's a religious experience. It's like the Passion of the Christ for Norse folk. That's literally, when I walked out there, I'm like, man, I felt like this movie touched me. Like that was one of those ones, like, this made more sense to me. I don't get me wrong, I love Passion of the Christ because Mel Gibson does it and so on like that. But I'm like, it's a Middle Eastern guy walking around. Let's be honest. But the Northmen, I feel like there's ancestry, tracing back there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I would love you to be the person who there's like little clips like before or after movies are on VHS covers or Blu-ray covers or whatever. It says, Roger Ebert says it's the best one. This is Spencer Scott Holmes. It's like Passion of the Christ for Norse folk.
Yeah. That to me, like, that's how I tell everybody about that movie. And like the people who get it, they're like, dude, I understand. Because when I saw the movie in theaters, I literally had a guy like, we were in like the grocery store at like 11 o'clock at night afterwards getting something. And this guy like is like following us and he comes up and he's like, I just want somebody to talk to about that movie. Wasn't that amazing? I was just like, whoa. Followed me all the way from the theaters here. This is kind of bizarre. I literally drove here. Yeah. We had a great conversation. It was amazing because there was a shared experience there. And that movie's another one too, with like, in a sense, I kind of call that and Prey. Like this sounds weird because most people don't associate these terms with it, but I call them like they're B movies. And what I mean by B movies is they're not a AAA, like someone's going to throw a crap ton of money, like an Avengers movie or anything like that. I always feel B movies nowadays are kind of like they're the second tier movies. They still go to theaters a lot of times, but they're never going to be as big as blockbusters or anything like that. They're not the Top Guns. They're not going to be a Mission Impossible. They're not going to be a Jurassic Park or anything like that. They're going to be the movies. They're still there in theaters, but they're the B movies. And that's what I feel like Prey is, that even the Northman. And it's not saying a B movie can be better than every blockbuster movie out there. It could be a perfect movie almost, but it's still kind of like, it's not going to be regulated as a high-end movie, or not high-end movie, as a well-seen money-making, picture.
What concerns me though, going forward is this, and we're talking more about streaming than Prey at this point, but I'll tie it back in. I worry about the plateau because what we saw with Netflix, what eventually happened, and what's they're figuring out right now is you reach a point where you've got your subscriber base.
Yeah,
you really can't go much higher.
Yeah,
you got the people that you're going to get. The other streaming services, even Disney Plus, are still trying to get to that level. They're close and they're on their way there. They're projected to get there, but they're younger, so they haven't made it that far yet.
Though so technically Hulu's actually older than Netflix.
Technically, yeah. But they're working their way up to compete, and they're trying to get to that level. So they have incentive to, here's this new Lord of the Rings show coming out on Amazon, and we put like $8 billion into, and you should watch that. And Disney has incentive to make Obi-Wan shows and Andor shows, and Hulu has incentive to make a Prey movie. What happens when they plateau? What's their incentive anymore to put any real budget into anything? Because your competition's got the same amount of subscribers as you do. There's really not that much incentive, and that kind of concerns me going forward with even movies like this. Like, 5 years down the road, Hulu and Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon and HBO Max are all like at the same level. And
now the downfall is what they're doing is they're trying to split the pot between everybody, and I think that's the biggest thing is because Netflix used to have the majority of the pot, but now the pot's just getting split. And I feel the average person only has about 1 to maybe 3 different streaming things. The person who likes movies and TV a little bit more might have more of them. Or if you're people like myself, you just end up going, oh, geez, I didn't realize I had 8 of them going at the same time. One of those kind of things. I guess I should cut some of these off because I don't watch any of them because I'm just watching Blu-rays.
Yeah.
But like, it's one of those ones where, because that's why I feel now. It's just like, God, because now it's just like, sometimes like, gosh, just every network known to mankind gonna have it. We're gonna have the Paramount Plus, we're gonna have the Peacocks, and we're gonna have the CBS. Well, I guess the CBS one fused. Some of them are fusing, I guess.
CBS is Paramount Plus.
No. Yeah, it fused into that one, but there's just almost too many things there because it's just that sort of thing. It's kind of like this is something I just always like. This kind of is a weird one, but like some people look at you like you're crazy. But I'm like, I always felt like I'll just use Netflix as my example. They should have just made Netflix Premium, where you spend like $40 a month, but it's got like 3 times more of the content on there. Because I think that's always the downfall to like especially like the low end $10 price tags or something like that, is they could only offer so much content on that low end price tag, But if they had like and some people are like, I would never pay $40. I'm like, what'd you pay for satellite and cable back in the day? It was like $100. Like, no, go fuck off. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, if literally they had something where it's like, it had like a majority of the stuff. Like the one thing I always wish there was something like Spotify, but for movies, where it's just like, it literally has pretty much 99% of stuff. You're going to have like a Garth Brooks or something who just is going to hold on to like physical media or something like that. But beyond that, everybody else is going to, for the most part, be on there, and that's what I think that would be the cool part to have with a movie one. And I feel like that would technically be worth $50 a month. It sounds weird, but it's like literally knock off all the other ones. And if you just had one that had practically everything on it, wouldn't that be worth it?
Here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Fusion thing. That's already happening. I mean, even this past week, it's HBO Max and Discovery Plus announced their merger, which I knew Discovery Plus was going to eventually go to something because it has.
Yeah, that was a weird one when they tried to go stand or separate, I guess.
Well, it has more than you think it does because it has HGTV.
Yeah,
it has like all kinds of the Science Channel, I think Smithsonian Network. Yeah, all these other channels are in there, and they're merging with HBO, so they're going to have both of those things in one place. And Disney already has National Geographic and Marvel, Pixar, blah blah blah. And then I think you're going to see more fusion over the next few years. You might see Paramount Plus merge with like Amazon, and then and then after you get to that point, it was going to come to a point where there's going to be some type of streaming provider. And you pay us $50 a month, you get all the things. But there's also Streaming Plus, where for $70 a month, you also get Shudder and you get all these other little things too. That's what's going to happen.
It's going to turn right back to satellite TV again.
It is.
It's going to be like we didn't go anywhere. We just came full circle back around.
100%. That is exactly what's going to happen. They know it already. They're just trying to figure out where they're trying to jockey themselves in position to figure out where we're going to be when that happens.
Yeah.
What are we gonna have? Because once everything's bought and sold up, you're left with what you're left with. So, yeah.
That's what it is. And I guess even just trying to bring it back to Prey a little bit, even though it's all kind of Prey just sort of sets off to kind of explain like how some of this stuff all works, because this one is sort of it's weird because it's kind of a gateway movie for like stuff, but I feel like Prey is also one of those, maybe people are just hearing about it because I never see enough news or anything like that. So sometimes I never know like exactly what's going on, but like in a sense, Prey almost doesn't feel like it's a movie that's going to be pulling people in to get a Hulu account, but maybe the talk about Prey and go, oh man, have you seen this new Prey movie or this, new Predator movie or something like that? I think maybe that might be something it does. But even still, I always feel one singular movie, does that pull somebody in for longer than maybe 1 month's worth of a subscription? Because that's the other thing too. Some people just like, I've done that myself. I just want to watch one movie. You get it for a month, you get the free subscription, whatever it is, boom. And you're like, okay, that's all I need to see.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we were almost about to cancel Netflix the other day. The only reason we didn't is because The Crown season 5. By the way, that's my show. Everybody thinks I want to see my wife. I love The Crown. I love The Crown. But we were going to cancel it, and But yeah, I think movies like I don't know. I was really pissed at Disney when they kind of put these movies in the vault. Predator, Die Hard, Alien. There's more. I think Planet of the Apes too.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of going to the vault. But if they do stuff with it and it's this good and they get the right people involved, then I'm all for it. I want more Predator movies now.
Yeah.
And people get over the woke stuff,
It's so light in this movie that like I don't even think I would really notice it if we weren't in this age. If this movie would have came out, let's just say in like 98, I don't think you would have really noticed it as much.
I kind of agree. Like I think people have been like, oh, it's a little ridiculous, this 100-pound Comanche woman just slicing through these guys like hot butter. There would have been some of that complaining, but
yeah, there's always going to be that like tough guy sitting at the edge of the room, you know what I mean, who just they're the kind of people that won't watch a UFC fight if a woman fights because he doesn't think it's realistic.
It's not realistic. I mean, I know she's bleeding. I know she lost a tooth, but it's just not real.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I don't know.
So it's that, but I mean, like to me, it's like I don't mind, like, because I like that kind of like that character archetype is like what I like in a video game. Is like that character is like the perfect one there. Like I always like to, even when I play video games, I always go for like a character like this, like the fast kind of female character that's got the kind of cool attacks and so on like that. You know what I mean? That's literally who I kind of gravitate to. I think that's why I like Lara Croft Tomb Raider so much. You know what I mean? Because I just think that character is so awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And also in this too, like the reason I think that some of the woke people need to shut the hell up, it does show that she struggles. Like she's literally not as good conventionally as hunting as the rest of the guys in her group. She doesn't do it the same way, but she has ingenuity.
Yeah.
And she figures out a way to compensate for the fact that she is kind of small. Maybe she isn't as strong, but she figures out something. And it's a great, I love just the progression of that character. It's not a Mary Sue character. She fucks up or gets close to succeeding, but doesn't. And, it all comes full circle at the end. But, yeah.
Well, the cool, I was just going to say, is one thing I think is kind of cool is she has a lot of practice scenes in it, which is something you don't see in a lot of movies too often too, where she really is practicing. Like it just shows the progression it gets and so on like that. Or even like, I like that scene where she gets stuck in like the bog and then she's sinking into it slowly. And like, she keeps chucking her like, makeshift like axe with like the rope on it. And she misses a bunch of times. Like, and I think that's almost like the thing I like about it is that she's a character who like, she actually has to try a handful of times to get there, but then she eventually gets it. Because she keeps practicing. She's got the determination. She keeps going for it and so on like that, And I think that's kind of like what makes for the character at the end to beat the Predator is that she keeps practicing. She keeps trying. When people tell no, that doesn't stop her whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and once she's mastered something, she's got to figure it out. And she knows how to use that against you.
Yeah.
And, I really thought the end of this was at least on par with the Schwarzenegger and in the original Predator. And she's definitely a better character. She's definitely a better actress than pretty much almost everybody in these movies. So almost.
There's some other good stuff there. One thing I thought was kind of weird though is because this movie was talking the whole time like, oh, that pistol at the end of Predator 2, we're gonna kind of explain how the Predator gets it. Like, well, how does the Predator get it? He's dead, and this pistol's still in her. That all I get pictures like I was waiting for a post-credit scene where like a ship comes down, shoots all of everybody.
There was.
Was there?
Not a post-credit scene. There was. I don't know how much of the credits did you watch?
I watched the credits, but I kind of skipped through towards the end. I'm like, well, I don't see anything here. I wanted to see if there was like and I didn't see anything pop up because it's
you know how they had the like cave drawing esque.
Yeah, I saw that
canvas drawing, I guess, where the ship comes back. It shows a ship come back.
Oh, that's
implies that.
I do kind of, yeah, but I thought it was literally going to I thought there was going to be one of those moments almost like Predator 2 where she defeats the Predator and then another ship kind of comes by and they almost are like congratulating her and somehow takes the pistol or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I thought there was going to be that was what was going to happen.
Yeah, it said it was going to explain it. It actually made it more complicated.
Yeah,
I definitely agree. I mean, I think it's insinuating that they came back and killed all of them, which that kind of blows too, because
the other thing I kind of thought too, I'm like, you know what? She realistically should have left this Predator here, and the Predator would have taken out all the white men coming. I'm like, that's the thing. It's almost it's one of those ones where it's like at the moment it seems good. I'm like, no, you screwed up. You should have actually had the Predator here because the thing is, he looks for the conflict. If you guys just go away and you become a peace-loving nation, he'll kill all those guys over there, and it's going to work its way out. Believe me, they're not going to come back to the New World once they go like, there's this alien thing over there.
Yeah, that's very true.
And if there's a bunch of aliens too, you never know. But
oh gosh, damn. Oh well, how could have rewritten history? But I think this is what you're going to see. To wrap it up, I think Prey was great.
Yeah,
I thought it was a very worthy, entry into this franchise. It did not feel like an alternate entry because it was a TV thing. It felt like it belonged in the same franchise, even though it was on TV. And I think it kind of set groundwork of what they can do going forward with it. I think they got the right people involved, and I think you're going to see more of this historical Predator stuff, which as long as it doesn't become formulaic, which it really could be, then I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you get some creative people who don't get stuck in the rut there, it definitely can. Something else that was kind of interesting I saw is just when I was looking on there was like, I saw this like, oh, there's a Comanche kind of voice track. And I didn't think much of it when I saw it on the Hulu thing. I was just like, oh, because I saw it afterwards. I'm like, maybe it's just like a dub. Like to me, I was just thinking like a Kung Fu thing. Oh, there's a Cantonese version. There's a Mandarin version. Oh, okay. But then I saw when I was reading it, no, they actually shot the entire movie with different lines in Comanche instead. I'm almost like, oh, if that was the case, I would have totally watched that version over it. Like they sort of hid that one underneath the rug, but I felt like that would have made it way more impressive. I mean, I get why you don't put that one as your main version, but yeah, I feel that thing needs some explanation to tell you that. And then if you knew that, you're like, oh, it's not just like a dub. Like, that's awesome. Because that's one thing I think is kind of interesting anyways about the movie. I like how the movie is, in a sense, all the Native Americans all speak in English. I mean, just for the fact for the audience sake, but when all the French people are there, they're all speaking in French and no subtitles, no nothing. So it gives you that feeling like, unless you're French, you're not going to know what's going on, except for that one guy who's the translator from the Predator 2 comic book.
That's really cool. Actually, I'm going to watch it like that.
Yeah. I felt like, I'm like, dude, that's definitely the next time I watch this movie, that's totally the way I'm going to watch it.
That's like a way cooler concept than like, the black and chrome edition of Mad Max, which we love Mad Max. So, but that's just like, you're going to take the color away from one of the best palettes in cinema history. But
yeah,
this is actually kind of cool. Like that would be a unique viewing experience. I don't know if
then all the French guys are speaking in English in this version.
Hey there, little lady.
It'd be weird though, you turn up, but they have no subtitles.
Yeah. Oh,
no subtitles for anybody now. So if you don't know Comanche and you don't know French, good luck. You don't know Predator speak.
So there is subtitles though.
I'm assuming there's subtitles on the Comanche. I was just joking with that part.
I'm hoping there's not.
I want the full immersive experience. I want to be like Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai going into this movie.
Oh man.
The more I watch it, the more I'm gonna learn these languages.
I will say Valkyrie did a really good job with the whole language transition thing. Remember that movie? Like he's writing something, he's speaking in German, then as he's writing, he turns to English. And
I like that movie. The only thing that threw me off though is I didn't know, like when I was watching that movie in the theaters, I did not realize. I have a hard time going like, is Tom Cruise supposed to be German or is he just an American that just happens to be behind the lines? Because that's like, I felt like it's one of those ones, like I kind of like, if you're going to speak in English, I don't mind that. Like that doesn't bother me at all, but like give it a little bit of an accent or else I feel like I'm confused on it, like who this character is supposed to be. If they're talking in like American English and we're in like 42 or whatever. And it's kind of, it's weird that way, The
only thing I'll say about that movie is I hated it because they did all that work and got so close, and then a few months later, the war was over anyway.
It was over.
And then, like,
if that movie came out in like 43, it would have been great, or 44, whenever the heck that happened.
Yeah, whatever. Well, anyway, thanks for listening to Via VHS Fast Forward. I hope that we talked about Prey enough, but we had fun with this movie. We both really liked it. It's kind of actually harder to review and nitpick it because I feel like they did such a good job.
Yeah.
They stayed true to the franchise. They stayed true to the quality of the first film, at least. Maybe even you can make an argument for Predator 2 and Predators.
Yeah, I would say it fits nicely into those ones. It's Predator 4 is the only one that's the oddball out nowadays.
Yeah, the Predator. I'm going to consider that non-canon.
You know what's so weird is that movie, like there's literally a list that once you watch this movie, and it's like, hey, check out the Predator series on Hulu. They have every single Predator movie except for that movie. And I don't really know why that is. Like they literally have Alien versus Predator Requiem, which is mostly the one that's kind of the least favorite of them all. And that's on there and advertised and all that stuff. And for some reason, the Predator, it's like, because that's still a Fox movie. Like, what the hell? Like, unless it's got some weird, like, Shane Black's got some weird ownership to it that keeps it off there.
There might be some type of weird, like a distribution situation. And then they got caught up in the transition between this, all that shit's getting so convoluted. I mean, it's just, who knows anymore? Who cares? But I don't really have to watch it anyway. This is definitely better. Prey was definitely better than The Predator.
Oh, by far.
Yeah. And
not saying I don't want to give it another college try, but
Yeah, and I think I liked it better than, in my opinion, it's the second best one. I liked it better than Predators and Predator 2. Because Predator 2 could have been really good, but had some flaws. But anyway, hope you enjoyed Predator Week. Don't know what we're moving on to next. Maybe we'll discuss that here in just a second. But stay tuned. A lot more Via VHS on the way. Maybe some more fast forwards. I got some stuff written down, some ideas. We had to look at maybe the Jurassic World stuff because that came out this year and the whole second trilogy's over. So maybe we kind of dive into Jurassic World and give our thoughts on that. And I think there's some other VHS era franchise stuff yet to come this year. I know we got some horror movies. They get another Halloween movie and things like that.
Is that final Halloween movie?
Yeah, the final Halloween movie.
For the final, I don't know. It's been final many a times, but
it's like the Rolling Stones. Well, this will be the last time for sure.
Yes, it never is.
Anyway, thanks for listening. Go to Via VHS on Twitter, Via VHS Pod on Instagram. Find me on TikTok at Via VHS. Spencer, you can find him at Spencer Scott Holmes a lot of places. You can find him on oldmanorange.com. You can find everything there. With that, thanks for listening to this fast forward episode. Catch us next time on a Rewind Review, and Via VHS is out.